Some knowledge is dangerous because it is false. This is dangerous because it is true. They kept this volume off the shelves for a reason. A person who learns what you are about to learn tonight becomes almost impossible to rule. You cannot frighten him with what he has already released. You cannot buy her with what she no longer needs. You cannot enrage a mind that has stopped fighting the things it was never holding in the first place. Light the candle. You know the way in by now, the door, the lantern, the long table where the lamp is already burning. Sit. I close the last volume with a promise that this whole code, the one they tried hardest to burn, comes down to 2 of the shortest words in any language. 2 words. Tonight, I put them in your hand. The first protocol will end half of your suffering before you fall asleep. The 7th will make you unsellable, immune to every hook they know how to set. And the 13th is the reason a council once voted to strike this book from every library in the Empire. The archive is open. Let us begin. Before the first protocol, a warning, the same one the Archivist gives every soul who makes it to this table. This volume was not hidden because it is complicated. It was hidden because it is simple, and because a simple person who actually practices it slips the leash. Think for a moment about who loses when you stop needing to be right, when you stop chasing the last word, when someone's disapproval lands on you like rain on stone and rolls off. The people who sell to you need your dissatisfaction. The people who manage you need your reaction. The people who want to keep you small need you gripping outcomes, gripping grudges, gripping the good opinion of people who do not think about you at all. A hand that has learned to open cannot be handcuffed. That is why they wanted this one burned. Look closely and you will find the whole economy of your life runs on your grip. An entire industry is paid to keep you feeling 1 inch short of enough, because a satisfied person is a terrible customer. A whole machinery of outrage is built to keep you reacting, because a calm mind does not click, does not share, does not rage on command. Even the people who love you have quietly learned which strings move you, and pull them without meaning any harm. None of this is a conspiracy in a dark room. It is simpler and far larger than that. Nearly everything around you is arranged to keep your hands closed, because closed hands can be led. Tonight, we do the one thing none of it is prepared for. We open them, so listen the way you would let weather pass. You do not need to memorize anything tonight. You do not need to take notes or sit upright or fight to keep your eyes open. The protocols in this code repeat and circle and return. Whatever you miss on this listening, the library keeps for you. And if you drift off before the lamp goes out, good. That is the code working, not failing. Sleep is not you losing the thread. Sleep is you finally loosening the grip. The library keeps your page. It will be here tomorrow, and so will I. If you have not yet claimed your key, turn it now before we go any deeper. The key costs nothing. It marks your place among the keepers, and it keeps this door from closing behind you when you leave. 1 turn. That is the only thing I will ask of you in the next 2 hours. After this, no more asking, only the code. Now the thing they most wanted you never to hear. You were raised to believe that holding on is strength, that the one who grips hardest, the tightest plan, the firmest opinion, the longest grudge, the most control, is the one who wins. It is the opposite. Everything you have ever gripped has been gripping you back. The plan that will not bend. The person who must change before you are allowed to rest. The apology you are still, after all these years, owed. Each one is a rope, and you are holding both ends and pulling, and you have called that pulling strength your entire life. Tonight you learn the oldest forbidden move there is, not how to hold on harder. How to let go on purpose, and become, in the letting, completely ungovernable. 2 words. We begin with the protocol the whole code is built on. Protocol 1. Let them. Picture the last time you tried to make a grown adult be different than they are. You explained. You proved. You sent the article, dropped the hint, then the heavier hint, then the comment that wasn't really a joke. And what happened? They dug in. They defended the very thing you were trying to talk them out of. You did not move them an inch. You cemented them in place. You have felt this so many times that you have stopped noticing it. Tonight, notice it. There is a name for what happened on the other side of that wall, and a laboratory measured it. In 1966, a psychologist named Jack Brame called it reactance. When a person feels their freedom being pushed on, even gently, even for their own good. Something old and animal in them shoves back. The pressure itself becomes the enemy. Tell a mind it may not have a thing, and the thing begins to glow. Tell it what it must feel, and it will feel the opposite for no reason other than to prove the door is still its own. You cannot push a human being in a straight line. Push, and they bend around your hand. And watch how far it goes. In 1972, 3 researchers, Driscoll, Davis, and Lippetz, followed a set of couples across several months. The couples whose parents interfered most, who pushed hardest to break them apart, did not drift apart at all. They bonded harder. The love grew in direct proportion to the force set against it. The researchers called it the Romeo and Juliet effect, after the 2 teenagers who wanted each other most precisely because the whole city forbade it. Understand what that means for you. When you press on a person to change, you are not the sculptor. You are the pressure they define themselves against. Your grip is the thing giving them their shape. So here is the first protocol, and it is 2 words long. Let them. Let them be who they are. Let them misunderstand you. Let them make the choice you can already see as a mistake. Let them not text back, not invite you, not clap when you were certain they would. Let them be small, if small is what they are. Let them show you with their own hands exactly who they are, because they will every time, the moment you stop leaping in to edit them. In the first volume, we drew a hard line between what answers to you and what never will. Tonight, we lay that same line on the ground between you and every other person alive. Everything on their side of it, their opinions, their moods, their choices, their timing, their love, their approval, was never yours to hold. You have spent years hauling furniture that belongs in someone else's house and calling your exhaustion caring. Now the other half, because let them on its own is only surrender, and this code has nothing to do with surrender. There is a story older than any library. A man walking down a road is struck by an arrow. That is the first arrow, the thing that happened. The message unanswered. The promotion handed to someone else. The friend who forgot your name in front of strangers. It hurts. It was aimed. It landed. Then the man reaches back into his own quiver, draws a second arrow and drives it into the same wound, again and again, for hours, for years. The replaying. The imagined conversations. The case you keep building against them in the courtroom inside your head. The first arrow is theirs, let them. The second arrow is always only yours. Let me set it down. You will find the sightings everywhere once you carry the word. The colleague who takes the credit in the meeting, let them. The work was still yours, and everyone who matters can see the seam. The one who left your message unanswered for 3 days, let them. A closed hand cannot hold a person who is already halfway out the door. The relative with strong opinions about your job, your body, your marriage, let them. An unpaid opinion is a bill from a company you no longer bank with. The stranger, wrong and loud, underneath something you posted, let them. You do not owe a reply to every open mouth on the internet. And here is what no one tells you about the word. It looks like you are giving something up, and you are handing in your resignation from a job you were never qualified for and never paid to do, the management of other people's inner lives. Quit it tonight. It has been killing you, and you were bad at it, because every single person who has ever tried it has been bad at it. Run it as a protocol the next time your chest goes tight. 1. Name the thing you are trying to control. His mood, her choice, their verdict on you. 2. Say the 2 words and feel the rope go slack. Let them. 3. Turn your hand over and say the other half. Let me choose my response. Let me keep my evening. Let me walk. 4. Act only inside let me, because that side of the line is the only ground you have ever actually stood on. 5. When the grip creeps back, and it will creep back within the hour, run it again. Let them, let me. It is not one decision, it is a muscle, and tonight is the first time you lift it on purpose. Before we go on, a debt from the last volume. I closed the Emperor's Journal by asking the keepers one question. Would you rather rule an empire or rule yourself? Hundreds of you signed the ledger. One answer earned its place in the archive. A keeper who wrote that an empire is only the loudest way to avoid the harder throne, the one inside your own skull, the single kingdom that no one can seize and no one can hand you. Its keeper knows who they are, the library remembers. And tonight's entire code is the how of that answer, because to let them is, in the end, to stop trying to rule the empire of other people, and finally sit down in the only seat that was ever yours, which brings us to the hardest person you will ever try to let go of. Not any of them. You. Protocol 2, the white bear. For the next 10 seconds, whatever else you do, do not think about a white bear. Do not picture its fur or its black eyes or the slow way it turns its head. Keep it out. You could not do it. Nobody can. And that small failure, repeated across a whole life, is the second thing they buried in this code. In 1987, a psychologist named Daniel Wegner sat people down and gave them that exact instruction, do not think of a white bear, and asked them to ring a bell each time it slipped in anyway. The bell rang and rang and rang, but that was not the strange part. Afterward, he let those same people think about the bear freely, and they thought about it far more than people who had been allowed to picture it from the start. Suppression had not emptied their minds, it had loaded a spring. Wegner called it ironic process. Part of your mind, ordered to keep a thought out, has to keep checking whether the thought is gone, and to check, it has to hold the thought up to the light. The guard you post at the door keeps summoning the prisoner just to confirm he is still locked away. Now carry that from thoughts to feelings, where it costs more. In another set of experiments, the psychologist James Gross showed people footage designed to disturb them, and told one group to feel it, but let nothing show. On their faces they succeeded, calm, blank, composed. Underneath, their bodies told the truth. Their hearts and their nervous systems spiked harder than the people who had simply let the feeling cross their faces. Suppression is not free, it is a tax, and you pay it in the body, in the stomach, in the jaw, in the hours you lie awake. And it does not even lower the feeling. It drives the feeling underground, where it keeps running the machinery without your permission. And it does not stay in the room where you left it. Wegner kept following the white bear and found it wandered into places you cannot guard. People told to suppress a thought before sleep dreamed of it more. He called it dream rebound. The bear you shove out the front door climbs back in through the window of your sleep. People put on a diet and told not to think about a forbidden food, thought of nothing else, and ate more of it the moment they were allowed. People ordered to push down their sadness stayed sad longer than those who simply let it sit. Everywhere he looked, the same law held. The mind has no delete key. It has only a volume knob, and suppression is the hand that turns it up. Think of the last time you tried to stop thinking about someone, an ex, a rival, a person who wronged you. You forbade yourself their name, and their name became the loudest sound in the house. You were not forgetting them. You were rehearsing them once a minute, under the banner of trying to forget. The very effort was a kind of devotion. This is why raw willpower, aimed at a feeling, always loses in the end. Willpower is a push, and everything you push in the inner world pushes back with exactly your own strength. You cannot win an arm wrestle against yourself. There is no one on the other side of the table but you. So the second protocol is the first one turned inward. Let them, the thoughts, let them, the feelings. The anxiety that rises, the anger that flares, the craving, the grief you were told to be over by now. You have been doing to your own mind exactly what you did to those grown adults, pushing and getting the Romeo and Juliet effect in return. What you resist does not leave. It falls in love with your resistance. There is a gentler thing that works where force fails, and a man named James Pennebaker measured it. He asked people to write about their hardest, most private feelings. 15 minutes a day, 4 days in a row. Months later, those writers were measurably healthier. Fewer trips to the doctor, stronger signs in the blood. Nothing about their past had changed. What changed is that a feeling held in full sentences stops haunting you. The unspoken feeling is a ghost. The named feeling is only a fact. The sightings are all through your nights. 2 in the morning, you order yourself to sleep, and the command itself jolts you awake. Sleep is the white bear you cannot stop hunting. You tell yourself to stop being angry, and the scene runs again, sharper. You decide you will not think about the thing you are trying to quit, and now it is the only thing you can see. Every one of them is the same spring, wound tighter by the hand trying to hold it down. Run the protocol. 1. Stop pushing, drop the rope, let the white bear walk into the room. 2. Name it plainly, out loud if you can. This is fear, this is wanting, this is grief. 3. Let it move through you like a wave and time it if you must. A feeling you stop feeding rarely stands longer than a minute or two before it breaks and rolls back out. 4. If it keeps circling, write it down, put it into whole sentences on paper, the way Pennebaker's people did, until the ghost becomes a fact. 5. Bring your attention without force back to the simple weight of your body where it rests. And now the word. If you are still with me, awake or drifting, it makes no difference to the code. You have earned it. When you sign the ledger tonight, sign it with the 2 words this whole volume turns on. Let them. Write them in the comments below, and the archivist will know you were at the table when the second protocol closed. That is all I will ask. From here on, nothing more. Only the code and the quiet. Naming a feeling loosens it, but there is something that loosens it even faster than a name. Distance, not shoving the thing away, stepping back from it and up and out, until the storm that filled your whole sky becomes a shape small enough to see the edges of. Step out onto the balcony. Protocol 3, watch from the balcony. Think of the thing that is eating you tonight. The real one, the one that has been sitting on your chest since this afternoon. Hold it in mind. Now answer one question honestly. A year from tonight, will you even remember it happened? For most of what wrecks a day, the answer is no. And yet in the moment it fills the entire sky because you are standing directly underneath it, close enough to count the drops. And from down there, a passing shower looks exactly like the end of the world. In 2015, 2 researchers, Brühlmann, Senecal and Audiobook, took people who were in the middle of real distress and taught half of them a single move. Instead of asking, "How do I feel about this now?" they asked, "How will I feel about this in the distant future?" That was the whole intervention. Just imagine looking back on it from far down the road. The people who practiced it recovered faster and hurt less, not because anything about the problem had changed, but because they had climbed out of the street and up onto a balcony. And from a balcony, you can see the edges of the storm. You can see with your own eyes that it ends. There is a plain version of this that anyone can carry, and a writer named Susie Welch put a number on it. Before you react, she says, ask 3 questions. How will I feel about this in 10 minutes, in 10 months, in 10 years, 10, 10, 10? The 10-minute answer and the 10-year answer are almost never the same size, and the distance between them is the exact amount of suffering you were about to sign up for by mistake. There is a phrase people have carried for 1,000 years that does the same work in 4 words. This too shall pass. An old story tells of a king who asked his wisest men for something that would keep him steady in every circumstance, unbroken in sorrow, unspoiled by triumph. They gave him a ring engraved with those 4 words. This too shall pass. In grief he read it, and knew the grief would lift. In victory he read it, and knew better than to clutch at what was already leaving. The ring was a balcony he could wear on his hand, and the evidence that it is true is your entire life. Every worst night you have ever lived through has, in fact, passed. You are not in a single one of them now. They all ended. This one will too. Take the thing eating you tonight and run the numbers out loud. Someone left your message on read. 10 minutes from now it stings and you are staring at the phone. 10 months from now you will not remember the message existed. 10 years from now it is not even a footnote in any story you will ever tell. The sting is real. The size of the sting is a lie your body tells you at 10-minute range, and the balcony is where you go to correct it. This is not pretending it does not matter. Some things matter in 10 years, and the balcony will tell you which ones. Those are the few worth your fire. It is everything else, the 90% that matters only until Thursday, that you have been treating like a life sentence. There is an extreme version of this that only a handful of human beings have ever lived, and it changed every one of them. Astronauts who have looked back at the whole Earth from space describe a shift so consistent that it has a name, the overview effect. From up there, the planet is a single blue marble with no borders, and every war, every worry, every grudge and deadline and humiliation that has ever swallowed a human life is happening on a fragile speck you could hide behind your thumb. Many of them come home permanently altered, unable to take the small things as seriously again, because they have seen with their own eyes how small the small things actually are. You cannot fly to space tonight. But you have a balcony in your own mind that reaches nearly as high, it costs nothing, and it is available the instant you remember to climb it. And here is the quiet mercy of the view. Almost nothing survives it. Carry the thing on your chest up onto the balcony, look at it from 10 years out, from across the room, from the height of your whole single life, and watch how much of it evaporates in the thinner air, revealed as what it always was. Not the end of the world. Only today's weather, moving through. The sightings are ordinary and daily. The email that detonated your whole morning, that you will not be able to find in your inbox by spring. The clumsy thing you said at dinner, replaying at midnight, that every other person at the table forgot before dessert. The number in the account that feels like drowning tonight and will be a line in a story you tell later. The argument you must win over a thing you will not be able to name by next month. Run the protocol. 1. Step onto the balcony, lift the scene up and out, and watch it as though it were happening to a character in a film, and you are in the back row, calm, with your coat still on. 2. Run 10, 10, 10 and say each answer out loud. 3. Ask the sorting question. Is this going into the story of my life, or is it only today's weather? 4. Shrink the thing to its true size, which is almost always smaller than your body told you. 5. Come back down into the street, carrying the corrected proportion instead of the panic. Time makes almost everything smaller. That is not a trick of the mind. It is the one honest thing the mind does if you let it. But some weights refuse to shrink with time because you keep carrying them on purpose, for a reason you have never once stopped to question. The weight you have already paid for. Protocol 4. The uncarried weight. Here is a question that has quietly run your life and you have never heard it out loud. How much of what you are holding onto are you holding only because you already paid for it? In 1985, 2 researchers, Arks and Bloomer, ran a study that should be taught to every human being at 15. Imagine you have bought a ticket for a ski trip. Then, by accident, you buy a ticket for a second, better trip on the same weekend, and the second one, the one you would enjoy more, was cheaper. You cannot do both. Which do you choose? Most people chose the trip they expected to enjoy less. Why? Because it cost more. They were willing to have a worse weekend rather than waste the larger amount of money that was already gone, unrecoverable, no matter which door they walked through. They punished their own future to protect a number in the past. That is the sunk cost, and you are covered in them. The past money is spent. The past years are lived. The past effort is burned, and no decision you make tonight can unburn a single hour of it. And yet the past keeps voting. The loudest, most confident voice in every room in your head. On a ballot, it is no longer allowed to hold. It gets more stubborn, because of what a thing becomes the moment it is yours. The economists Richard Thaler and Jack Netch handed out plain coffee mugs to half a room, then let people trade. The people holding a mug suddenly wanted about twice as much to give it up as the people without one were willing to pay to get it. Nothing about the mug had changed in the 10 minutes since it landed in their hands, only that it was now theirs. We overvalue what we already hold simply because we hold it. A job, a title, a relationship, a version of ourselves. And so letting go always feels like losing far more than an outsider would ever pay for the same thing. History built a monument to this exact error and named it after an airplane. In the 1960s, Britain and France began building a supersonic passenger jet called the Concorde. Long before it ever flew, the engineers and the accountants could already see it would never earn its money back. The costs were run away, the market far too small. Every rational signal said stop. They did not stop. They kept pouring money in for years, precisely because they had already poured so much in, until the losses became legendary. Economists now have a name for throwing good money after bad for exactly this reason. They call it the Concorde fallacy, an entire pair of nations doing at the scale of a supersonic jet, the thing you do when you stay one more year in a life you have outgrown because of the years already spent. The plane was beautiful. It was also a warning, flying at twice the speed of sound. The more you have sunk into a mistake, the more the mistake disguises itself as something you are obligated to protect. Now shrink it back to the size of a life, where it does the real damage. The relationship that has been over for 2 years, kept breathing only by the decade behind it. You are not staying for a future. No future is being offered. You are staying to honor the past as if the past could be repaid by burning the present on its altar. The career chosen at 22 and outgrown by 40, defended with one sentence: "I can't start over now, not after all this time." As though the years already spent were an argument for spending every year you have left the very same way. Sunk cost does not only take your money, it quietly bills you the rest of your life, one loyal year at a time. Put the two together, and you get the trap that keeps people in the wrong life for decades. You stay because you already spent the years. You cling because it is already yours. Neither of those is a reason. Both of them are the past, dressed up as loyalty. The sightings are the big, load-bearing ones. The career you no longer want, kept alive by the degree you spent years earning. The relationship held together mostly by how long it has already lasted. The project, the investment, the plan you will not cut because of everything already poured into it. The argument you have to win now, tonight, because you have already spent an hour losing it. There is one clean question that dissolves all of it, and a way to make it bite. Imagine you did not already own this: the job, the relationship, the plan, the position, the version of yourself. Imagine it were simply on offer today, fresh at the price of everything it will cost you from here on, not what you already paid, that is gone whatever you choose, but what it will take from you going forward. Would you sign? Would you walk into this job today knowing what you now know? Would you begin this relationship today as it actually is, not as it was, or as you hope it becomes? If the honest answer is no, then you are not keeping it because it is good. You are keeping it because it is already yours, and letting go feels like a loss even when the holding on is the loss. The old traders had a version of this they used to stay sane. If you would not buy it today, at today's price, then holding it is not neutral. Every day you keep it is a fresh decision to buy it all over again. Most of what you are gripping right now, you would not buy again. You are simply failing to sell. The past has no vote here. Only the next step counts, and the next step is always mercifully free of everything behind it. There is one protocol here, and it is a single clean question. 1. Name the thing you are keeping. 2. Say the true sentence out loud. Whatever I already spent is gone either way, whether I stay or go. 3. Run the fresh eyes test, knowing everything I know now. If this were placed in front of me today, brand new, would I choose it? 4. If the answer is no, then the only real question left is the cost of the exit, never the cost already sunk. 5. Decide facing forward, which is the only direction you have ever actually been able to walk. If this protocol loosened something that has been welded shut for years, tap the like on your way through. It is not for me. It is how the library finds the next keeper standing where you were standing an hour ago. That is the last time I will ask you for anything tonight. From here, the door stays open and the asking stops. We hold the past for the price on its tag. We also hand the present over, hostage, to every conversation we never finished. The open loops. Protocol 5, the open loops. Almost 100 years ago, a young psychologist named Bloomer Zygarnik sat in a busy cafe and noticed something about the waiters. They could hold a dozen unpaid orders in their heads perfectly, who ordered what, at which table, in what order, a feat of memory that seemed almost impossible. But the instant a bill was paid, the whole order vanished from their minds. Ask them a minute later, and they could not tell you what the settled table had eaten. The mind gripped the order only while it was open, and dropped it the second it closed. She took it into the laboratory and confirmed it. People remembered unfinished tasks far better than finished ones, nearly twice as well. An open loop does not sit quietly and wait. It hums. It taps you on the shoulder in the shower, at the red light at 3 in the morning. Every unfinished thing you are carrying, the email you have not sent, the decision you keep redeciding, the conversation you keep rehearsing, the appointment you have not booked, is a waiter standing at the edge of your mind, holding a tray, refusing to leave until someone pays the bill. Now you cannot finish all of it tonight. That is not the way out, and this is the part almost everyone gets wrong. In 2011, 2 researchers, Massicampo and Baumeister, found the real release. They gave people unfinished tasks, which promptly intruded on everything else they tried to do, exactly as Zeigarnik would have predicted. But then they let some of those people make a specific plan for how and when they would finish. Not do the task, just plan it, concretely. And the intrusions stopped. The mind let go of the loop the moment it trusted the loop was captured somewhere reliable. The plan did what completion does. The waiter set down the tray and walked away. A man named David Allen built an entire method on this one fact and gave the humming its truest name. He called them open loops. Every unkept promise, every I should, every half-made decision you are holding in your head at once, and he named their cost precisely. The mind, he said, is for having ideas, not for holding them. When you use your head as a storage cabinet, you jam the machinery, because a mind full of open loops has no room left to think or rest or actually be wherever you are. His answer was not to work harder or care less. It was to get every loop out of your head and into something you trust. A page, a list, a place outside yourself, so the mind can finally stop standing guard over things it was never built to store. The state on the far side of that, he said, is a mind like water, still clear and able to respond, because nothing unfinished is tugging at it from below the surface. You can feel this tonight with one exercise older than any app. Take a blank page and empty your head onto it. Every open loop, from call the dentist to figure out the rest of my life, no order, no judgment, until the inside of your skull is quiet and the page is full. People who do this the first time often describe the same strange sensation. A silence they had forgotten was possible, as if a room full of people all talking at once had finally, one by one, been shown to their seats. This is let them for the unfinished. You do not have to close every loop to put it down. You have to give it a home outside your head. The sightings live in your worst hours. The 3 a.m. to-do list that runs itself on a loop while you beg for sleep. The decision you have made and unmade 40 times because it has no landing place. The hard conversation you have rehearsed so many times, you have had it 100 times, and never once out loud. The endless, I really should, which is a loop with no next line written. Bring it to the actual bedside because that is where the loops come to collect their debt. It is late, and they arrive one after another. You didn't answer her, the form is still due, you never called him back. What are you going to do about the money? Each one tapping your shoulder, none of them solvable at this hour, all of them demanding to be held anyway. You cannot close a single one at midnight, but you can do the one thing that sends them away. Keep a pad beside the bed, and as each loop arrives, write it down, and next to it the single next step, and the day it will happen. Not tonight, tomorrow, at 10. The mind, seeing the loop safely caught, does exactly what Zeigarnik's waiters did the moment the bill was paid. It lets go, forgets, and finally lets you sink. This is the part almost everyone misunderstands about a quiet mind. It is not a mind with nothing in it. It is a mind that trusts its loops are held somewhere safe, so it no longer has to stand guard over all of them at once all night long. You were never meant to be the warehouse and the night watchman both. Set the loops on the shelf. Turn off the light. Run the protocol. 1. Empty the loops. Every open one onto paper or a screen, no matter how small or how enormous, get them out of the dark where they multiply. 2. Beside each, write the single next physical action and when it will happen. Not the whole plan, the next line only. 3. Watch your mind release what it now trusts is written down and coming. 4. Any loop that would take 2 minutes, close it now tonight and feel it disappear. 5. Let the page hold the rest so your head does not have to carry them into the dark another night. The loops go quiet the moment you write the next line. But the deepest loop you are carrying is not a task at all. It is a story about what something meant and what it says about you, running on repeat, unquestioned for years. And a story, unlike an arrow, is something you are allowed to edit. Protocol 6. The story you're not telling. Something happens, a message goes unanswered. A door closes a little too hard. A name is left off a list. And then, a heartbeat later, you feel it. The drop in the stomach, the heat in the face. It feels as though the event reached in and did that to you directly. Cause and effect, stimulus and wound. It did not. Something sits in the gap between the event and the feeling. so fast and so familiar that you have never once caught it in the act. A sentence, a story, a belief about what just happened and what it says about you. In the middle of the last century, a psychologist named Albert Ellis built an entire method on this gap. And he built it, by his own account, on a single line from a Roman teacher. We will meet before this volume ends. It goes like this. The activating event, the thing that happens. C, the consequence, the feeling that follows. And everyone believes A causes C. The message causes the misery. But Ellis said no. There is always a B in between the belief. The message unanswered is A. He is done with me. I am unlovable. I did something wrong. That is B. And B is what produces the misery, not A. Change B and C changes, even when A cannot. You can hear how much this matters the moment you separate the two. He didn't reply. That is the event. That is all of it. That is the entire raw fact. Everything else, he is angry, he is leaving, I am too much, I am not enough, is a story you wrote in the dark in your own hand and then handed to yourself as though it came in the mail. There is a woman named Byron Katie who turned the questioning of these stories into 4 plain questions, and they cut deeper than they look. When a painful thought has you, she says, ask it. 1. Is it true? 2. Can you absolutely know that it is true? Not likely. Not probably. Absolutely, the way you know your own name, you almost never can. 3. How do you act? Who do you become when you believe this thought? Smaller, colder, sharper, further from the people around you. And 4, the one that opens the cell door. Who would you be right now in this room if you simply could not think this thought? Lighter, freer. Yourself before the story landed. This is not lying to yourself, and it is not deciding the painful thing does not matter. It is the opposite of lying. It is refusing to swallow, unquestioned, a story you have no proof of, a story you would never accept from anyone else on such thin evidence. You keep the fact. You put down the fiction you stapled to it. There is a whole map of these invented stories, and a psychiatrist named Aaron Beck drew it. Beck noticed that his patient's suffering ran on a small handful of predictable tricks of thought, the same few counterfeit stories printed over and over, and once you know their faces, you catch them in the act. There is mind reading. I know exactly what they think of me, though no one has told you, and you cannot see inside a single skull on this earth. There is fortune-telling. This will go badly, narrated with total confidence about a future that has not happened yet. There is catastrophizing. One bad thing means the whole structure is about to come down. And there is the mental filter, which reaches into a bright day, pulls out the one dark thread, and stares at it until the whole day turns grey. Every one of them is a belief wearing the badge of a fact. Watch one run in slow motion, because the slow motion is where you finally catch it. Your manager walks past your desk without saying good morning. That is the event, the entire raw fact. A person walked past a desk. Now the machine starts. He's angry at me. Something's wrong with my work. This is how it begins, right before they let someone go. I always do this. By the time the film ends, you have fired yourself in your own head over a man who had a headache and was thinking about his own morning and never saw you at all. You did not respond to what happened. You responded to a 4-second short film you wrote, cast, scored, and screened, and then mistook for the evening news and noticed the tax on the film because it is not free. Your body cannot tell the difference between a real event and a vividly imagined one. It pours the same stress hormones into your blood either way. So you pay in a soured morning, a tightened chest, an afternoon of dread, for events that never occurred, in a life that was, at the level of fact, completely fine the moment the manager walked by. The sightings are the private captions running under your whole life. He didn't reply, so he is done with me. She got the promotion, so I am falling behind and always will be. They didn't laugh at my joke, so I am humiliating myself. I made one mistake, so I am, underneath it all, a fraud. Every one of them is a B pretending to be an A. Everyone is a story wearing the mask of a fact. Run the protocol. 1. When the feeling hits, stop and hunt for the sentence underneath it. Say the belief out loud, flat and plain, so you can finally see it. 2. Ask it. Is it true, and can I absolutely know it is true? 3. Watch honestly who you become while you believe it. 4. Ask who you would be in this exact moment without it. 5. Keep the event which is real and set down the story, which you invented and can uninvent. Almost every story you tell in the dark is about the same thing: what other people think of you. That is the deepest hook of all, the one they set in you before you could speak. And it is the next thing we take out. Protocol 7, the approval hook. Here is the hook that runs deepest, set earliest, and costs the most: the need to be liked. Pull this one, and half of what still moves you against your will goes slack. Start with how much smaller the audience is than you think. Around the year 2000, a psychologist named Thomas Gilovich ran an experiment that should be printed on the inside of every eyelid. He had a student put on a deeply embarrassing t-shirt, a large photo of the singer Barry Manilow, and walk into a room full of other students. Before walking in, the wearer guessed how many people would notice the shirt. They guessed about half the room. The real number was closer to 1 in 5. Half of the people who did notice could not even recall it afterward. He called it the spotlight effect. We feel a spotlight following us, catching every flaw and stumble. And the spotlight is almost entirely in our own heads. Everyone else is starring in their own movie, worrying about their own shirt. So why does it feel like life and death? Because once it was. A psychologist named Mark Leary gave the best answer with what he called the sociometer. Your self-esteem, he showed, works like a gauge, a needle that rises and falls with how accepted you sense you are, and that gauge is ancient. For almost all of human history, to be cast out of the group was to die. No tribe, no food, no protection, no survival. So evolution wired disapproval to feel like danger, a fire alarm bolted directly to your nervous system. The problem is that the alarm never got the memo. It still screams, "You will die," over a left-on-read text, an unliked post, a room that did not laugh, none of which will kill you, none of which even lasts the week. And this exact alarm is the handle. It is the handle the advertiser reaches for when they show you the life you should be ashamed not to have. It is the handle the manipulator reaches for when they make their approval a weather system you live under. It is the handle every person who has ever moved you against your own interest has used, because it is already installed, and you have spent your whole life keeping it oiled. Let go of the need to be liked, and there is nothing left to grab. You become unsellable, you become unshameable, you become, in the truest sense of this whole code, ungovernable. And the evidence runs in your favor, if you will let it in. In 2018, a team of researchers led by Erica Boothby studied what happens after strangers talk, and found something they named the liking gap. After a conversation, people consistently underestimated how much the other person liked them. You walk away replaying your every stumble, certain you came across as awkward or boring or too much, while across the room the other person walks away thinking they liked you more than they managed to let on. The gap is real, it is measurable, and it runs in your favor. The harsh judge you imagine installed in every other head is, most of the time, just a projection of the harsh judge in your own. So look at what the hook actually costs you in one ordinary week. You said yes to the favor you had no room for, and quietly resented it for 6 days. You rewrote one message 4 times so that no one could possibly be annoyed, and sent it late and weaker than your first draft. You swallowed the opinion you actually held and nodded along with a room you disagreed with, and drove home feeling like a stranger inside your own life. None of that was kindness. Kindness is chosen and freely given. That was the reflex of a wired alarm, spending your one life buying safety from a threat that was never there. And you can walk the fear all the way down its own staircase until it runs out of floor. What if they don't like me? Then they don't invite me next time, and then I spend those evenings with the people who actually do, and then I have fewer rooms and truer ones and more of myself in each. Follow almost any approval, fear down its own steps, and you arrive somewhere you would honestly rather be. The dread only stays enormous while you refuse to look at what is waiting at the bottom of it. The sightings are constant and quiet. The yes you say when your whole body means no. The over-explaining of a decision that needed no defense. The opinion you perform because it is the safe one to hold in the room. The message you drafted and deleted because two people might frown. The way you make yourself smaller at the table so that no one anywhere is ever uncomfortable, as if your smallness were a gift and not a slow disappearance. Run the protocol. 1. Catch the alarm as it fires, the flush, the bracing, the what will they think. 2. Name it for what it is. This is the old tribe alarm, not a real threat. The year is not what my body thinks it is. 3. Run the spotlight correction. They are thinking about themselves, not me. Almost no one noticed, and the ones who did have already forgotten. 4. Climb down the so what ladder, and then what, and then what, and then what, following the fear all the way to the floor, which is always nearer and softer than it felt from the top. 5. Practice on purpose. Pick one small, safe disappointment this week, let one person be a little unhappy with you, and collect the proof that you walked away whole. None of what you have heard tonight is new. It only sounds forbidden because they stopped teaching it. One man built his entire life on this code, not in a garden, not on a throne, but in chains. He was born a slave, and he became the freest man in Rome. Open the case file and case file. The slave who owned his mind. Around the year 50, in a town called Hierapolis, in what is now Turkey, a child was born into slavery. We do not even know the name his mother gave him. The name that history kept, Epictetus, is not a name at all. In Greek it means acquired, gained. It is the word a merchant writes on an inventory. The property, that is what the world called him. And for the first 3 decades of his life, that is all the world believed he was. He was carried to Rome and sold into the household of a man named Epaphroditus, himself a former slave, who had climbed to become a secretary to the Emperor Nero. So hold the position of this boy in your mind. Owned by a servant of the most powerful and most dangerous man alive, standing at the very bottom of the bottom, one careless sentence away from ruin, inside a court where careless sentences got people killed. If ever a life was built to teach a person that he controlled nothing, it was this one. And then there is the leg. The story that has come down to us, we cannot fully verify it, but it has followed his name for 19 centuries, is that his leg was crippled during his years of slavery. In one telling, his master, in cruelty or in idle sport, began to twist it. Epictetus did not scream and did not beg. He simply said evenly, "If you keep doing that, you will break it." The master kept going. The leg broke. And Epictetus said only, "There, did I not tell you it would break?" No rage, no collapse. Just a quiet man noting a fact about a body he had already stopped mistaking for himself. Whether it happened in exactly that way, we cannot say. But his students repeated the story because it was true to the man they knew, a man who had drawn the hardest line a human being can draw between what could be done to him and what he actually was. Somewhere in those years of bondage, something extraordinary happened. He was allowed to study, and he heard a Stoic teacher named Musonius Rufus. And this enslaved young man, who owned nothing, not even his own name, began to understand that there was one territory no master could enter, no emperor could tax, no chain could reach. The inside of his own mind, his judgments, his responses, the meaning he did or did not grant to what was done to him. Everyone around him spent their lives grasping at things outside that territory. He turned and walked inward, and closed the one door that was his to close. After Nero fell, Epictetus was freed. A former slave, now a free man, he began to teach philosophy in Rome. But freedom in Rome was thin and conditional. Around the year 93, the Emperor Domitian, who feared philosophers the way tyrants always fear people who cannot be frightened, banished them all from the city. Epictetus did not write a bitter word about it that we know of. He simply left, crossed the sea to a town called Nicopolis on the coast of Greece, and opened a school there. And they came. Students crossed the empire to sit on his benches, young men of rank and money, come to learn from a lame old former slave who lived in a small house with a mat, a lamp, and almost nothing else. He wrote nothing down, not one book. Everything we have of him survives because one student, a gifted young Roman named Arrian, took careful notes of what he said and preserved them. The discourses, and a short handbook we now call the Uncarried, which means simply, the thing you keep close at hand. A slave's words, saved by a student's hand, carried out of a small Greek town into the next 2,000 years. And carried they were further than he could ever have dreamed. Centuries after his death, Christian monks would take that same little handbook, change a few of the names, and copy it out as a guide for their own devotion. A pagan slave's manual quietly becoming a book of scripture for men who never knew whose words they were living by. His reach ran upward, too, into the halls of power. He taught without flinching that a tyrant could take your life but could never touch your integrity. And he loved to tell of a Roman senator named Helvidius Priscus, who, warned by the Emperor Vespasian to stay silent in the Senate on pain of death, answered that it was the emperor's part to kill him and his own part to speak the truth without fear. That was the whole of the man's teaching, lived out loud. They may seize everything on their side of the line and lay a hand on nothing on yours, unless in your fear you hand it across to them yourself. The stories his students kept are all the same shape. He owned an iron lamp by whose light he read. A thief came in the night and stole it. And Epictetus, who could have raged at the violation, the loss, the disrespect, noted instead that the thief had paid a price too, the price of becoming a thief, and resolved only that next time he would own a cheaper lamp of clay so that the world would have less of his to take. He had let go of the lamp before the thief ever touched it. There was nothing left in his hand to wound. His whole teaching, as his students received it, lived in one distinction he refused to blur, between the things that were his and the things that never could be. His body was not fully his. It could be chained, starved, broken as his leg had been. His reputation was not his. Other men owned their opinions of him. His freedom, his property, his very life could be taken by any Domitian who woke up in a black mood. But his will, the judgments he made, the assent he gave or withheld, what he decided a thing would mean, that was his alone. "They can chain my leg," he said in words his students never forgot, "but my will not even Zeus himself can conquer." A man who has located that one inner room and moved into it has nothing left that the powerful can use as a handle. There is nothing to threaten that he has not already released. He grew old in Nicopolis, still teaching, still poor, still, by every account, content. And in his old age, by one account that has come down to us, this man who had lived alone and austere his whole life did something that tells you the detachment was never coldness. A friend's infant was going to be left to die, as unwanted children sometimes were in that brutal age. Epictetus took the child in and raised it, and brought a woman into the household to help. The man who had let go of everything the world grabs for had kept the one thing that mattered, the freedom to choose deliberately what to love. Letting go had not emptied him. It had cleared him out to make room for what he actually chose. He died around the year 135, an old freed slave in a small town, having owned across his whole life almost nothing at all. And here is why his file sits in the middle of this volume, and not anywhere else. Decades after his death, a young man was handed a worn copy of those lecture notes by his tutor. That young man was named Marcus Aurelius, the emperor whose secret journal you opened in the last volume. The most powerful man on earth, ruler of the entire Roman world, kept as his most private guide the notebook of a man who had been born a piece of property. In his own journal, Marcus stops to give thanks that he was shown those discourses. The emperor and the slave, across 100 years, holding the very same code. One had everything the world can give, and knew it was borrowed. The other had nothing the world can give and knew it did not matter. They met in the one room that was truly their own. That is the whole of it. Not a doctrine for the comfortable, a survival tool forged at the bottom that turned out to work just as well at the top. A note from the Librarian, before we walk into the second half. Breathe once and let me gather what you already hold. Let them, the people, their choices, their weather. Let them, your own thoughts, unpushed, unfought. Step to the balcony and let time cut the storm down to its true size. Set down the weight you keep only because you already paid for it. Give the open loops a home outside your head. Catch the story hiding under the feeling and keep only the fact. And unhook gently from the endless need to be liked. 7 protocols. One motion practiced 7 ways, the opening of a hand. If your eyes have already closed, leave them closed. You are not behind. Nothing in the second half needs to be caught tonight, because the code repeats, and the library keeps your page exactly where you left it. What remains are the deeper releases: how to stop fighting the waves, how to step off the wheel that promised you happiness and never delivered it, how to set down a grudge without letting anyone off the hook. And the last protocol, the one they most wanted burned, the one that turns the whole code into a single held breath. The lamp is still burning. Stay as long as you like or drift. Either way, we go on. Protocol 8, the waves. There is a sentence you have quietly organized your whole inner life around, and it is a lie. The sentence is, when I finally feel calm, I will be free. So you wage war on every wave that rises. The anxiety, the anger, the sadness that arrives with no invitation, because you believe that peace means a flat, still sea, and that every wave is a failure, a thing to be beaten down before it crests. In 1979, a scientist named John Kabat-Zinn walked into a hospital at the University of Massachusetts with a strange idea. He gathered patients that medicine had mostly given up on, people in chronic pain, people crushed by stress and anxiety, and instead of teaching them to fight their symptoms, he taught them to turn and face them, without struggle, without judgment, simply watching what was there. He called it mindfulness-based stress reduction, and the results were not soft. Pain scores dropped. Anxiety loosened its grip. People who had spent years at war with their own bodies finally set the weapons down and got better. The line most often tied to his work says the whole thing in a breath. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. Sit with that, because it rearranges everything. The goal was never a flat sea. There is no flat sea, there never was. Anyone who sold you one was lying. To be alive is to have weather move through you. Waves of feeling rising and falling all day, all your life. Detachment is not the end of the waves. Detachment is you standing up on the board, riding the thing you used to drown in. And here is the mechanism, plain and physical. A wave of emotion, left alone, is astonishingly short. It rises, it crests, and it falls, often in under 2 minutes. What turns a 2-minute wave into a 2-hour flood is the bracing, the tightening against it, the story about it, the fight to make it stop. Bracing is exactly what pulls a swimmer under. The ones who survive a wave are the ones who stop fighting the water and let it carry them up and over. There is a number on this, and it comes from a brain scientist named Jill Bolte Taylor. When an emotion fires, she explains, it releases a flood of chemistry through the body, and that chemical surge, the actual physical wave of the anger or the fear, runs its whole course in about 90 seconds. 90 seconds. After that, the chemistry has cleared, and anything still standing is there because some part of you is choosing, knowingly or not, to keep re-triggering it, retelling the story that fires the flood all over again. She calls it the 90-second rule. The emotion arrives on a 90-second visa. What turns a 90-second visitor into a resident for the rest of your afternoon is the mind, running back to the door again and again to let it in. So the practice is to let the 90 seconds happen without feeding them. The wave of fury rises in the meeting. You feel the heat climb your neck, and instead of pouring the story on top of it, how dare they, this always happens to me, you simply feel the heat and breathe and let the 90 seconds burn through clean. On the far side, the chemistry is gone, and you are still there, able to choose your next word instead of firing it. You did not swallow the anger, and you did not act it out. You surfed it, up the face, over the crest, down the back. And it set you down, unharmed, roughly where you started. This is why the people who seem unshakable almost never turn out to be the ones with no waves. They feel the same jolts you do, the same dread, the same flares, the same 3 a.m. panic. What they have stopped doing is adding the second wave on top of the first. The first wave is nature. The second wave, the one made of no, not this, make it stop, why am I like this, is optional, and it is the one that actually drowns people. 2 people feel the identical jolt of fear before they speak. One rides it and speaks, the other fights it, and the fight doubles it, and the doubling is the thing they will later call their anxiety. Same wave, different swimmer. The sightings are every hard hour you have, the wave of dread that rises the moment your head hits the pillow, the wave of anger that floods your chest mid-argument, the wave of craving for the thing you are trying to leave behind, the wave of grief that breaks over you in the cereal aisle for no reason you can name. You have been treating each one as an emergency to be stopped. It was only ever a wave to be ridden. You can test this tonight with the smallest wave you can find. The next time a flicker of irritation or worry rises, a line that is too long, a small rude thing, a flash of dread out of nowhere, do not fix it and do not fight it. Just name it, rising, and breathe and quietly time it. Watch it crest and watch it fall, and notice the thing your whole life has been too busy struggling to notice. That it went, on its own, without your help. Practice on the small waves in daylight, and when the big one comes at 3 in the morning, your body will already know, in the muscle, that a wave is not a wall. It is only water. And water always moves on. Run the protocol. 1. The instant a wave rises, name the motion, rising. Just that. 2. Stop bracing, unclench the jaw, drop the shoulders, let the water in, because the fight is the drowning. 3. Ride it, breathe slow and low and let it lift you toward the crest instead of pulling you under. 4. Note it without a verdict. This is anxiety, it is here and it is already moving. 5. Watch it fall because it will fall. No wave in the history of the ocean has refused to break. You do not have to end the wave. You only have to outlast it standing up. You can ride any wave the moment you remember one thing, that you are the surfer, not the sea. But most people have never once made that distinction. They think they are the wave. They think they are the fear, the anger, the thought itself. The next protocol is the crowbar that pries you loose. Protocol 9, the passengers on the bus. Say this sentence in your head, I am a failure. Now notice something almost no one ever notices. There were two things present just then. There was the thought, I am a failure, and there was you, the one who heard it. Those are not the same, they have never been the same, and the entire weight of this protocol rests on that hair-thin gap. A psychologist named Stephen Hayes built a whole form of therapy on it, and he gave it a picture you will not forget. Imagine you are the driver of a bus. Your job is to drive it toward the places that matter to you, the life you actually want. But the bus is full of passengers, and the passengers are every fear, every memory, every cruel thought and grim prediction you have ever carried. And they are loud. They lean over your shoulder and shout, turn here, you'll fail, go back, you're not good enough, don't you dare. And most people hearing that do one of two things. They pull over and argue with the passengers for hours, trying to throw them off the bus, which never works because you cannot unthink a thought by fighting it, as the white bear already taught you. Or they simply obey and drive wherever the loudest, most frightened passenger points. Hayes showed there is a third option, and it changes a life. You can keep both hands on the wheel and drive toward what matters, while the passengers shout. You do not have to remove them. You do not have to obey them. You can let them scream in the back and go exactly where you were going anyway. They are passengers. You are the driver. They have never once, not for a single second, had their hands on the wheel, unless you handed it to them. He called the move diffusion, unhooking from the literal grip of a thought, so it goes back to being what it always was, a set of words passing through, not a command, not a verdict, not the truth. And the practice is almost embarrassingly simple. When the thought comes, I am a failure, you do not fight it and you do not swallow it. You change the frame. You say instead, I am having the thought that I am a failure. Feel the half step of distance that opens, then go one further. I notice I am having the thought that I am a failure. Now there is you over here noticing, and the thought over there being noticed. The passenger is still shouting, but you can see it is a passenger. Hayes has other ways to open the same gap, and they feel almost like sleight of hand until you notice they work. Take the heaviest word you carry about yourself, the one-word verdict, failure, unlovable, whatever yours happens to be. Now say it out loud, over and over, quickly for 30 seconds. Failure, 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 failure. Somewhere around the 20th repetition, something strange happens. The word comes apart. It stops meaning and starts sounding. Just a noise the mouth makes, 2 syllables, air and teeth. Psychologists have known this effect for more than 100 years. The word did not change. Only your fusion with it did. For one moment you heard what the thought actually is underneath the terror it usually carries. A sound, a passenger shouting a word. Or picture the finger trap, the little woven tube you slide a finger into at each end. Pull your fingers apart, struggle, fight to get free. And the trap grips tighter. That is what every panic teaches you to do, and it is wrong. Push in toward the thing, give it slack, and the trap loosens and lets you go. Or simply sit and watch your thoughts like leaves drifting down a stream. Here comes I'm not good enough. Set it on a leaf. Watch it round the bend. Here comes what if it all falls apart. Another leaf, let it go. You are not damming the stream. You are sitting on the bank. And a person on the bank does not drown, however much water goes by. Bring it to the ordinary dread. It is Sunday night and the passenger stands up. You're going to fail this week and everyone will see it. The old move is to argue with it, or to believe it and lie there awake. The diffused move is a single sentence. I notice I'm having the thought that I'll fail this week. And then you drive anyway. You lay out your clothes, set the alarm, and sleep with the passenger still muttering in the back, because muttering is the only thing it has ever been able to do. Monday comes. You are never going to fail. You are only ever going to be afraid, which is a passenger, not a prophecy. The sightings are the voices you have mistaken for yourself your whole life. The flat verdict, I'm a failure, I'm unlovable, I always ruin this, delivered as fact. The anxiety insisting you cannot do the thing you are about to do. The inner critic narrating your every move in someone else's cruel voice. The catastrophe reel that plays the worst ending before anything has even happened. Run the protocol. 1. Catch the thought as a thought, hear the words as words, not as a report from reality. 2. Prefix it. I am having the thought that, and then I notice I am having the thought that, and feel the distance widen with each step. 3. Let the passenger shout. You are not required to answer it or evict it. 4. Ask the only question that matters. If I obey this thought, does it carry me toward what I care about or away from it? 5. Keep driving toward what matters, passengers and all. A full bus can still reach the right destination, as long as you never once let go of the wheel. You can let the passengers ride, but there is one passenger who has been shouting the same word into your ear since you were a child, and it has run more of your life than all the others combined. The word is more. Just get the next thing and you'll finally be happy. Step down off that. Protocol 10, the treadmill. You have a finish line in your mind. You have had one your whole life, though it keeps changing address when I get the promotion, when I hit the number, when I find the person, when the house, the title, the body, the recognition, then I will finally arrive and be happy and rest. You have crossed some of those lines already. Notice that you are still running. In 1978, 3 researchers, Brickman, Coates and Janoff Bullman, went looking for the two ends of that finish line. They found people who had won large lottery prizes and people who had been paralyzed in terrible accidents, and they measured their happiness. Everyone thinks they already know the result. Everyone is wrong. Within about a year, the lottery winners were not meaningfully happier than ordinary people. And worse, they had lost something. The everyday pleasures, a good meal, a small joke, a morning, had dimmed for them, because next to the memory of winning, ordinary life felt grey. And the people who had been paralyzed, they were less happy, yes, but nowhere near as devastated as everyone, including you right now, would predict. And they rated the small daily pleasures of life higher than the winners did. This is the hedonic treadmill, and it is one of the most quietly important facts about being human. You adapt. Whatever you get, good or bad, you climb toward or sink toward, and then your feet find the belt again, and it keeps moving, and you are back where you started, running, eyes fixed on the next line. The prize you were certain would change everything changes it for a month, and then becomes the new normal you barely notice, and then becomes the floor you are afraid to fall below. 2 more researchers, Daniel Gilbert and Timothy Wilson, mapped the other half of the illusion. They found that we are terrible forecasters of our own feelings. We consistently overestimate how happy the good thing will make us, and for how long, and we equally overestimate how destroyed the bad thing will leave us. They called part of it immune neglect. We forget that we have a psychological immune system, a quiet machinery that metabolizes loss and disappointment far faster than we ever believe it will. The breakup you are sure will end you does not end you. The failure you are dreading becomes, within a year, a story you tell with a shrug. You are far more durable than your fear, and far less satisfiable than your hope. Both ends of the treadmill are shorter than they look. There is a name for the specific heartbreak of getting what you wanted. A teacher of positive psychology named Tal Ben-Shahar calls it the arrival fallacy, the belief that when you finally arrive, you will at last be happy. You picture the summit, the degree conferred, the ring on the finger, the number in the account, the name on the door, and you do arrive, and for a moment, it is sweet. And then you look around the summit and find the same person standing on it that you carried up the mountain. The same restlessness, the same faint, unfinished feeling, now bewildered, because the view was supposed to fix it. The fallacy is not that the goals are worthless. It is that arrival was never what carried the joy. The climbing did. The striving, the becoming, the being on the way. That is where the life actually happened, and the summit is only the place where you catch your breath and choose the next mountain. So turn the treadmill's own question back against it, out loud until it runs out of road. I'll be happy when I make more money. And then what? Then I'll want the house. And then what? Then I'll want it paid off. And then what? And the finish line gets up on its own two legs each time you near it and strolls calmly further down the track, because that is the one thing a finish line in the mind is built to do. It is not there to be crossed. It is there to keep you running. The only way off the belt is to reach right now, tonight, into that imagined future and drag one good thing back into the present. This bed, this quiet, this breath, this ordinary evening you will one day ache to have back. And let it be enough, deliberately, before you have arrived at anything at all. The sightings hide inside your proudest ambitions. The promotion you were sure would finally make you feel like enough, and did, for about a week. The scroll before sleep that resets your finish line to a stranger's highlight reel every single night so that you wake already behind in a race no one ever entered you into. The someday that keeps changing its own address. When the kids are grown, when the business sells, when I retire, always one arrival further on. You are not years from peace. You are one decision from it, and the decision is to stop waiting to arrive. The sightings are your whole ladder of wanting. The raise that fixed nothing for longer than a payday. The I'll be happy when that has quietly moved its own goalposts 100 times. The catastrophe you survived so completely, you had to be reminded it once felt like the end. The scrolling comparison that resets your finish line to someone else's highlight reel every single night. Run the protocol. 1. Catch the sentence, I'll be happy when. 2. Ask it honestly, and then what? And after that, what next? And watch the finish line get up and walk further down the track. 3. Recall a finish line you have already crossed, and ask how long the happiness actually stayed. 4. When you fear a loss, remember the immune system. You have survived every worst day so far at 100%. 5. Reach back and pull one good thing out of the imagined future and into this actual moment. Savor one thing you already have right now, tonight, because the present is the only place the treadmill cannot follow you. The treadmill runs on wanting more, but there is an older, heavier engine, and it runs on the exact opposite fuel, on what was taken from you, on the debt that was never paid. It is the hardest thing in this entire code to set down. The grudge. Protocol 11, the grudge ledger. Somewhere inside you there is a ledger, and it is heavy. On its pages are the debts, the people who wronged you and never paid, the words that should have been apologies and never came, the betrayals you can still recite line by line though the world has forgotten them. You carry that ledger everywhere, you reopen it at night, and you have believed your whole life that holding it open is a form of justice. It is not. It is a bill you keep paying on their behalf with your own peace. First, understand why the ledger is so lopsided, why the wrongs are written in permanent ink and the kindnesses fade by morning. A neuropsychologist named Rick Hansen put it in a line that sticks because it is built to: the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. It is not a flaw in you. For your ancestors, remembering the threat, The betrayal, the thing that nearly killed them, was survival, while forgetting a pleasant afternoon cost nothing. So the mind evolved to grip the injuries and let the joys slide off. Which means your grudge is not a fair accounting. It is a scale with a thumb pressed down hard on one side. The ledger only ever records what hurt. Now the release, and it is not what you were taught. A researcher named Fred Luskin at Stanford ran forgiveness projects with people carrying the heaviest grudges imaginable, including men and women who had lost family members to violence. And what he found, across study after study, is that forgiveness is not a gift you give the person who hurt you. It is a gift you give yourself. His people, taught to let go, saw their stress drop, their anger cool, their hurt loosen its grip on their days. And none of it required the offender to apologize or change or even know. Because forgiveness, the way it actually works, is not saying what they did was acceptable. It is taking the knife out of your own hand. You can set the grudge down and still never trust that person again, never let them back in, never pretend it did not happen. Releasing the resentment and excusing the deed are two entirely different acts. They only feel like one because no one ever showed you the difference. Here is the oldest way to say it. Resentment is the poison you drink while waiting for the other person to die. And they will not die. They are asleep right now, untroubled, while you brew another cup. Every hour you spend in the courtroom in your head, they are the one living rent-free, and you are the one paying the rent in the only currency that matters, your one life, your one tonight. And this is not a metaphor. A laboratory has watched it happen in the body. A researcher named Charlotte van Ooyen-Witvliet brought people in and had them do two things. First, vividly recall someone who had hurt them, and nurse the grudge, hold on to the blame, rehearse the wound. Then, imagine extending forgiveness to that same person. While they held the grudge, their bodies lit up with the full signature of stress, heart rate climbing, blood pressure rising, the muscles of the face tightening, the sweat response spiking. Their bodies were not remembering the injury. They were reliving it in real time, paying the full physical price all over again for something that had happened once years ago. And when they shifted toward forgiveness, even imagined, even unspoken, the alarm quieted and the body came down off the ledge. The grudge is not filed away in a drawer. It is stored in your arteries. There is a specific engine that keeps it burning, and a psychologist named Susan Nolan Hoxemer spent her career mapping it. She called it rumination. The mind circling the same hurt, the same injustice, around and around, convinced that if it just goes over it one more time, it will finally solve it or settle the score. It never does. Rumination does not process pain. It marinates in it. Her studies showed over and over that the people who circled longest did not heal fastest. They sank deepest into longer and heavier stretches of suffering. The replaying that feels like working toward justice is the very mechanism holding the wound open. You are not building a case, you are watering a weed, and so try tonight the smallest possible release. Not for them, for you. Bring one grudge to mind and notice honestly what it is doing to your body even now in the dark just from being thought of. The jaw, the chest, the heat rising. That cost is yours and you are paying it tonight, while the person who caused it sleeps soundly and free. Setting it down does not open your door to them. It does not erase what they did, or excuse a single moment of it. It only takes your own hand off the poison, and lets your body at last come back down. The sightings are the debts you are still trying to collect. The person from years ago you are still this very week winning arguments against in the shower. The family wound that organizes every holiday. The ex whose ghost you consult before every new door. The parent whose old verdict you are still, at your age, trying to overturn. Run the protocol. 1. Name the grudge and then name its true cost. Not what it did to them, but what carrying it is doing to you tonight, right now. 2. Separate the wound which was real from the rehearsal, which you have been performing for years and which recuts you every time. 3. Understand what you are actually doing, releasing the poison, not excusing the deed. 4. Take the knife out of your own hand. You may keep every boundary, every closed door, and still let go of the acid. 5. When the old case reopens itself, meet it with one chosen line. I set this down. It is costing me everything and costing them nothing. And put the ledger back on the shelf. The grudge is the illusion that your holding on somehow reaches them and hurts them. It never does. But there is a larger illusion underneath it, the biggest one in this whole code, the belief that holding on gives you control at all. Protocol 12. The illusion of control. Now we correct the thing that a careless listener might have taken from everything so far. The idea that letting go means going limp, giving up, floating through life as a leaf on the water. It is the opposite. This protocol is where detachment grows teeth. Start with a study that is quietly one of the most important ever run. In 1976, two researchers, Ellen Langer and Judith Rodin, went into a nursing home. On one floor, they gave the residents small pieces of real control, a plant to care for that was theirs to keep alive, and choices about the ordinary shape of their days. On another floor, residents were told kindly that the staff would handle everything, take care of every need, tend every plant. Same building, same care, one difference: who held the small levers of a life. The residents given control became more active, more alert, more engaged, happier. And when the researchers came back later, the difference had grown teeth of its own. The group that had been handed responsibility was living longer. A plant, a choice, the dignity of one's own small levers, enough to move the line between living and dying. But Langer found the shadow side too. A year earlier, she had shown that people fall in love with control they do not actually have. Offer someone a lottery ticket they choose themselves versus one handed to them at random, and they value their own pick more. They want more money to sell it, as though picking the numbers bent pure chance to their will. She called it the illusion of control. We reach for the levers that are bolted to the wall and do nothing, and we ignore the ones in our own hands. Put the two together, and you have the exact error that runs anxiety. You pour your strength into the things you cannot control. The outcome, the other person, the verdict, the weather, the roll of the dice, gripping levers connected to nothing, exhausting yourself moving handles that turn no gears. And meanwhile, the levers that are truly yours, your effort, your preparation, your next word, your response, sit untouched, because all your strength is spent on the illusions. Detachment does not mean dropping every lever. It means finally letting go of the fake ones, so both your hands are free for the real ones. Psychologists have a name for where a person aims their sense of control, and it predicts a startling amount about a life. Julian Rotter called it locus of control. Some people carry an external locus, the sense that what happens to them is decided by luck, by other people, by forces out beyond the glass. And so there is little point in acting at all. Others carry an internal locus, the sense that their own choices and effort actually turn the wheel. And the research is not shy about which one fares better. People with a stronger internal locus tend to be healthier, steadier, more persistent, less flattened by setbacks, not because the world hands them more, but because they keep their hands on the levers that are genuinely theirs, instead of surrendering to the ones that were never in play. What this code adds is the missing half. Detachment is not an external locus, a shrug at the whole machine. It is the wisdom to see in each moment which locus the situation is actually asking for. The oldest version of this fits in a single breath, and you have almost certainly heard it. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Read it again slowly and notice it is not one instruction but three, and the third is the hardest by far. Most suffering is not a failure of courage and not a failure of serenity. It is a failure of sorting, pouring courage onto the things you cannot change and serenity onto the things you could have. You rage at the traffic and shrug at the habit. You strain to change the person and quietly accept the misery. Get the sorting right, and the courage and the serenity almost take care of themselves. So do the sorting on paper, on whatever has its hand around your throat tonight. 2 columns. On the left, only what is truly yours, your effort, your preparation, your words, your next move, your response to whatever arrives. On the right, everything that is not. The outcome, the other people, the timing, the verdict, the roll of the dice. Now look honestly at where your worry has been living all evening. It has been camped, almost certainly, entirely in the right-hand column, spending your strength hauling on handles bolted to nothing, while the one real lever on the left sits cold and untouched. So move your hands, pour everything into the left, do the one thing that is actually yours to do, and then turn to the right-hand column and say the two words, and mean them. Not mine. The sightings are the shape of your worry, the night spent trying to control an outcome already sealed, the flight in the air, the decision in someone else's hands, the result already printed and only waiting to be read. The managing of grown adults who never ask to be managed, the private rituals and superstitions we perform over pure chance. And hiding under all of it, the one real lever, the thing you could actually do or say or prepare, left cold and untouched while you wrestle the wall. Run the protocol. 1. Name what you are anxious about plainly. 2. Split it into 2 columns. What here is actually mine, my choices, my effort, my preparation, my response, and what here is not mine, the outcome, the other people, the timing, the chance. 3. Pour everything you have into the first column, the real levers, the ones connected to gears. 4. Release the second column out loud, not mine, and take your hands off the wall. 5. Do the one real thing that is yours to do and then let the result land wherever results land, because that was never the part you were holding. That is 12. 12 protocols and, you may have felt it by now, one single motion underneath all of them, practiced 12 ways. The opening of a hand. Now the last one. The one they most wanted struck from the record. The protocol where the entire code collapses into 2 words and a single breath. Protocol 13. The art of letting them. At the very start of tonight, I told you this whole forbidden code comes down to 2 of the shortest words in any language. You have been holding them for 2 hours now. Let them. And you may have thought, back at the beginning, that it meant something small. A shrug, a giving up, a way to stop caring. You know now that it is the largest thing there is. To let them is to take your hands off every wall that was never yours to hold and put them back on your own life. Every protocol tonight was the same motion wearing a different face. Let them be who they are. Let the thought come and go. Let time cut the storm to size. Let the sunk cost stay sunk. Let the loops rest on the page. Let the story be only a story. Let the need to be liked go quiet. Let the wave rise and fall. Let the passengers shout. Let the finish line move without you. Let the grudge off your own back. Let the fake levers go. One hand opening 13 times, that is the whole code, that is all it ever was. And now I give you the master key, the smallest, most physical version of it, the one you can use tonight when your mind is too tired for any of the rest. Your body already knows how to let go. It does it every time you sigh. In 2023, researchers at Stanford tested a handful of simple breathing practices, and one stood out above the rest, above even quiet meditation, for lifting mood and dropping the body's alarm. They called it cyclic sighing. It is this: a breath in through the nose, and then at the top a second small sip of breath to fill the lungs completely, and then a long, slow, complete exhale through the mouth, letting all of it go. 2 breaths in, 1 long breath out, a few minutes of it, and the nervous system stands down. You did not have to be taught this. You were born knowing it. Watch a child who has been sobbing finally begin to settle. The breath comes in 2 catching stages, and then releases in 1 long shudder, and the storm is over. That double inhale and long sigh is the body's own built-in reset, wired in before language, before thought, and it works by physically reopening the tiny collapsed sacs deep in the lungs and clearing out the stale air that panic leaves behind. The sigh is not the sign that you have calmed down. The sigh is how you calm down. You have simply spent so many years overriding it, holding the breath, bracing, gripping a chest full of air you were afraid to release, that you forgot the oldest tool you own was installed at the factory and has been waiting this whole time. So here is the entire code, folded small enough to carry into sleep tonight. When the mind is too tired for protocols and studies and steps, you do not need any of them. You need 1 breath. Lying there in the dark, draw the air in and take that second small sip at the top, and then let it go, long and slow and complete, and on the way out, Say the 2 words to everything you are still holding. Let them. The message left unanswered, let them. The person who has not changed and will not change, let them. Tomorrow, which has not yet arrived, let them. The version of today you wanted and did not get, let them. Breathe the whole world in and then on purpose let it leave. That is the art. That is the entire art. You will spend the rest of your life getting better at it, and you can begin completely on the very next breath you take. Feel why this is the master key and not just a trick. The breath is the one place in the whole body where holding on and letting go are laid bare. You cannot hold your breath forever. Try, and your body will overrule you and force the release, because to live is to let go of the breath you are holding. The inhale is the world coming in. The exhale is you letting it leave. And you have spent your life, without knowing it, holding your breath, bracing against people, against outcomes, against the next thing, jaw tight, shoulders up, gripping a lungful of air you were terrified to release. The art of letting them is, in the end, the art of the exhale. Breathe the world in and then on purpose let it go. So here is the last protocol, the one that holds all the others. 1. Breathe in through the nose, then take that second small sip of air at the top. 2. Let the exhale go long and slow and complete, and on it say the 2 words and let them. 3. Breathe again and on the next exhale turn your hand over, let me, and find the one small thing that is actually yours. 4. A few rounds until the alarm in the body goes quiet and the sea goes calm on its own. 5. And then do it again tomorrow and the day after forever, because this was never a fix you apply once. It is a way of breathing, it is a way of living. It is the art you will practice for the rest of your life and get freer at every single time you remember to open the hand. 2 words, 1 breath, let them. That is the code they tried to burn, and you are holding it now, and no council on earth can vote it out of your lungs. The lamp is burning low now. That is how it should be. Listen to what you are carrying out of this room, and let me say it back to you the way the library says it, not as a list to memorize, but as a rhythm to sink into. Let them be who they are. Let the thought come and let the thought go. Let time cut the storm down to its true and passing size. Let the sunk cost stay sunk. Let the open loops rest on the page. Let the story be only a story, and keep the fact. Let the need to be liked go quiet in your chest. Let the wave rise and crest and fall. Let the passengers shout while you drive. Let the finish line move without you chasing it. Let the grudge slide off your own back. Let the false levers drop from your hands. Let them, let them, let them. You do not have to remember all 13, you never did. On the nights the world has both hands around your throat, you need only 2 words and 1 long breath. Let them and exhale. The rest will come back on its own because a hand that has once learned to open remembers in the muscle how it is done. This volume rewards a second listening. The first time through you heard the words. The second time, half asleep. With the thinking mind switched off, the code slips underneath your thoughts and begins to loosen the reflexes you never chose. And that is where a thing like this actually lives. Not in what you know, in what you no longer grip. So come back to it. Let it wear its groove into you, night after night, until letting go is not something you decide, but something you simply are. And do not be discouraged on the nights it does not work. The nights you grip anyway and lie awake anyway and lose the whole thing back to the worry. That is not you failing at the code. That is the code. Every person who has ever grown free at this has done it in exactly the way you will, by forgetting and gripping and remembering and opening the hand again 10,000 times until, one ordinary day, the opening is simply the thing that comes first. You are not behind, you are on the path. The forgetting and the remembering are the path. When you sign the ledger tonight, sign it with the 2 words. Let them. Write them below, and the archivist will read them, because the archivist reads everything, and will know that you were here, at the table, awake or drifting, on the night the code came back. And if these 2 hours loosened something that has been clenched in you for years, then do the one thing that keeps a library alive through any fire. Bring 1 soul with you. Send this to the person you know who is holding their breath. A code handed to 1 more pair of hands is how it survives. There is already another volume on the lectern. Tonight you learned the art of the open hand, What to release, what was never yours, how to let the world pass through your fingers instead of tearing them. But a life is not only letting go. There are a few things, a very few, worth holding on to with everything you have, and almost no one knows how because they were only ever taught to grip everything or drop it all. The next code is the other hand, the closed one. Discipline the will. How to keep the promises you make to yourself in the dark when every feeling you own has gathered to vote that you break them. They buried that code too, and for the very same reason they buried this one. A person who can let go of everything the world uses to move him and hold fast to the handful of things that are truly his. That person cannot be ruled at all. That is the volume waiting for you next. Until then, breathe out. Let them. The lamp is going dark, your page is kept, and the door stays open behind you. The library remembers who entered.